let's rock. Thanks, everybody. My name is Ananth. I'm the founder of Resolved AI, and we're building an infrastructure automation platform to allow enterprises and developer teams do innovation and not infrastructure. So organizations are currently going through what is referred to as the infrastructure tsunami, where over the last decade, and especially the last 3 to 5 years, enterprises have been rapidly adopting microservice-based cloud infrastructure, and even now, AI. This has created a philosophy and ripple effect known as the you build it, you maintain it, where DevOps teams and platform teams can no longer keep up with the amount of infrastructure that needs to be provisioned and managed, and application and software teams are now responsible for doing so. What this has caused is a lot of institutional knowledge trapped within manual processes on how people provision, configure, and manage their infrastructure. And the way to share and scale that knowledge in enterprises today looks a lot something like this, where Brian on your team says, don't worry, let me show you how we've been managing our infra. So now you're staring at Brian's dusty terminal, maybe squinty-eyed, he's running a bunch of CLI commands, maybe he's going to his AWS console, clicking one of the millions of buttons, and after a 30-minute session, or an hour session if you're lucky, he'll look at you and say, did you get it? And if I was to ask someone from the crowd right now to come up and re-provision the infrastructure that Brian just did, how many of you would look like Woody here? And that's the reality that many organizations face. And the question isn't, could you do it right now? I'm sure some of you could. But could you do it a month from now or a year from now? And that's what many organizations struggle with. But the answer kind of always goes back to, well, no need to worry, at least we have Brian. But what happens when Brian calls it quits? He leaves the team, he retires, goes to the beach. Does your organization look like this? SpongeBob with his brain on fire, or Mr. Krabs in the spin cycle? At Resolved, we understand that this data of how your infrastructure actually runs in production is oil for enterprises. It's what keeps them going, and we help extract it. So all the workflows that surround your cloud provisioning, the manual workflows in and around your CI/CD pipeline, troubleshooting, configuration, we help capture that data. But one thing we notice is computers are actually much better at storing, capturing, and recalling native computerized information. So we created a secure localized desktop application to do exactly that. So on the left, you see Brian sharing his terminal, but this time, all he has to do is start a screen recording session, and we capture that file completely. We take that screen recording, and we take screenshots of that screen every second for context and understanding what applications Brian is using. We do keystroke logging, inputs and outputs of the CLI to get full commands, and also voice. So if Brian's explaining what he's doing and enriching that context just as he would explain to another engineer, we can take all of that and create what you see on the right, which is really clean, crisp, step-by-step natural language instructions on how anyone can re-provision the steps that Brian does to maintain and configure that infrastructure. Pretty cool, right? Thank you. We thought so too. But we still felt like something was, kind of poking at us, that we weren't pulling all the levers that being a truly native AI enterprise allows us to do. And you may push back. You may say, but Ananth, you guys have done so much. You've already built this super powerful multimodal AI application that's capturing never-before documented workflows in enterprises. There's nothing more we need from you. And a piece of me would agree with you, but something about a human actually stepping through a workflow, using their fingers to type on the keyboard and do it manually just felt very 2022. So we decided to change that. So to go to the live demo, I have Resolve downloaded on my machine. And when I click into our dashboard, you'll see a list of runbooks that you and your team have created and shared with each other from those screen recordings. And if we click into one, you'll see that step-by-step documentation on the left. But if you click this green play button, you'll see that you can configure any of these variables as you wish. So we'll go ahead and change a few of these, like security groups, and AMI looks good. Instance, you can change instance type to anything you want. So it's very configurable, and when you click submit, our AI agent will actually use our automation engine to drive both the terminal and a browser to re-provision that infrastructure for you. And the best part about this is it runs completely in the background. So you can switch screens. I could go back to the demo. I could present code, not my actual code, put your phones away. But I could actually do anything. And again, the vision is to help people do innovation in anything but infrastructure. And so you can see the instance is pulled up. The automation is complete. But one other thing we'd like to show you is you can actually export this natural language workflow straight into Terraform with those same parameters that we configured, so we can go straight from natural language into infrastructure as code. Now, why is this super cool? If you've never worked with infrastructure as code like Terraform, CDK, Ansible, developers actually got a pretty raw deal almost a decade ago when this stuff came out, which is everything about infrastructure as code is reactive. So after Brian spends hours manually provisioning something on his terminal or console, you then have to go back and spend hours or sometimes days to manually write the infrastructure as code to match what you just provisioned. In a lot of cases, like me, when I used to be an engineer, I didn't do it. And so we want to make this as frictionless and seamless as possible. And because we're capturing data in real time, we're not putting any additional friction on the user to go back retroactively and write that infrastructure. So here we have fully editable infrastructure as code, Terraform, provisioned for you, and you can take that and run it anywhere. So we think that's pretty cool. Now, who the hell are we? Well, as you know, my name is Ananth. I was a software engineer at Capital One for 3 years during a really pivotal time in the business. It was us and Netflix were actually the first two enterprises and Fortune 500 companies to shift to 100% AWS-based architecture. So I got to see firsthand that growth in microservices and all the problems that came along with that. And I was on two very key teams within the org. One was back-end payment team, and the other was an internal dev tooling team. But in both those teams, everything I did came with protection of guardrails for customer data, regulatory compliance. So when it comes to building a secure, localized application, I know that stuff really, really well. And we understand making developers faster has never been more valuable. In just the last 5 years, we saw Red Hat, who created Ansible, and now HashiCorp, who created Terraform, get acquired for several billions of dollars. Also, democratizing infrastructure has to happen now. We see all the companies running towards AI code gen. Rightfully so, it's very powerful natural language abstraction to help more people and democratize access to write code, like Cursor, Devin, Cody. But all of that software is just leading to more and more infrastructure that needs to be configured and managed. So just as we're going to make it easy for anyone to write software in natural language, who's going to do the same for all that infrastructure? I think it's going to be resolved. So to end, our philosophy is actually very, very simple. In a world where people question what companies will last when AGI inevitably hits us, it can come tomorrow, as Sam Altman keeps tweeting. It can come a year from now, 5 years from now. But the reality is, all that super cool AGI and AI has to run on some server somewhere. And we believe infrastructure and hardware are forever. And in that reality, Resolve lets anyone be a multi-cloud DevOps engineer through a natural language automation engine. Thank you so much. We're raising and would love to talk to you.